Welcome to the Premiere Pro CS3 podcast on the DMN. I am your host, Jeff Shell. This week's podcast comes from an email by Luke Thayer, who asked me how he could create a line on a map to show the path he took on a recent trip. This is really easily done with the Write On effect. And to begin, I'm going to go ahead and come to my Effects panel, and I'm going to search for Write On, and there it is. I'm going to drag that to my map that I have in track video 1 of my timeline. And now I'm going to come up to my Effect Controls panel, and I'm going to expand the Write On effect. And what we're going to do is basically set keyframes at every position along the map. So I'm going to click on the Write On Direct Select, which allows me to graphically select the position of the of where I'm drawing my line. So let's say we started here in Kansas City, and we're going to travel over to Colorado Springs and maybe on down to Phoenix on a little tour of the Grand Canyon, or near the Grand Canyon, I suppose. Okay, so what I'm going to do is select the position of my first line, and I'm going to make sure I'm starting at the beginning of my timeline. So I've moved my current time indicator to the start of that sequence. And now I'm going to turn on the keyframe mode, or animation mode, for the brush position property of the Write On effect. And now I'm just going to come down the road a little bit here, no pun intended, about a second later or so. And we're going to take our line and we're going to have it come on over here to Colorado Springs. And you know what? Maybe I should be a little bit better about this. Maybe we're actually going to try to follow the interstate route there. So I'm going to come down here a little bit longer and scoot that down a little bit. And as I'm doing this, I'm basically just moving my current time indicator and then dragging my crosshair or brush position to a new spot. Okay, and as you can see, each time I change my time and then change the location of the brush position, I get a new keyframe in my Effect Controls panel. Okay, so we're almost there. We're going to head down here to Las Cruces, and then we're going to scooch on over to Tucson, and then we're going to finish up in Phoenix. Okay, good. So we've drawn points along the map. I'm going to go ahead here and just watch this. And then what I'm going to do too, to make it easier to see my line, I'm going to click on the color property of the Write On effect. We're going to make it a nice bright red. And I'm going to make my brush size a little bit bigger. Maybe make it 8 or so I can see what's going on. Okay, now I'm just going to grab my current time indicator and play this. And here we go. I'm going to move along, down, over, down and over. Beautiful. Can't complain. And one of the things you'll notice about the keyframes for the brush position is that there's automatically a nice soft kind of curve whenever you have an angle. So by default, Premiere Pro does this for these brush position keyframes. If I was to right click on one of the keyframes and go to spatial interpolation, you can see that it's set to auto Bezier or Bezier. I've never said that right. I didn't take French in school, so pardon my French. Another pun. I'm just full of them today. Alright, so if you don't want soft curves in your map and you want straight lines, the easiest way to achieve this is to click on the word brush position, or click on the phrase, I should say, and that selects all of your brush position keyframes. Right click on any one of the keyframes and change the spatial interpolation to linear. When I do that, you can see immediately up here in the program monitor that I've lost all of my curves, and instead I have very noticeable rigid angles. And of course, if you want to change it back, you can right click on them, choose spatial interpolation, and well, do any of these, auto or continuous. I'll go ahead and just choose auto, and that'll make a nice, again, soft line. I've gone ahead and rendered my timeline, and now when I play it back, we can get a nice smooth playback, and we can watch the map. Now the reason I did this is because you can see that the map changes speeds, and perhaps that's not exactly what we want. If we want a nice smooth speed, then we have to do a little bit of work by shifting our keyframes around. So I'm going to come up to the Effect Controls panel, and I'm going to expand my brush position velocity. And you can see that in this velocity range from 0 to 204 units a second, we have a pretty wide spectrum here of slow speeds to high speeds. So the goal is to get this to be one straight line. I'm going to go ahead and make my effect controls panel a little bit bigger so we can better see these velocity keyframes. Now this is one of those things where if we were using After Effects, we could right click on our keyframes and rove them across time, and it would automatically smooth out the velocities between each keyframe. However, Premiere doesn't have such nice automated features for its keyframes. So what we're going to do is basically manually just grab these one at a time and move them left and right until we've created rather smooth velocity lines. And of course, this is not going to be an easy process by any stretch of the imagination, because as you move one, it affects the others. So what we're going to have to do here is just kind of tweak and tweak and tweak and continually tweak. And it doesn't have to be perfect until we can get it just about right. Let's get that one over a little bit. That one over a little bit. Yeah, this is going to take a while. So let me go ahead and fast forward you to the end of this so you don't have to watch me do it. Well, it's far from perfect, but it's close enough that I don't think it'll be noticeable. So let's go ahead and render this timeline again and watch it. And voila, we have a much smoother map line being drawn. And of course, if we want to kind of ease into our final position, I'm going to right click on the very last keyframe. I'm going to choose temporal interpolation, and we're going to ease it in. And you can see the velocity graph comes to a nice subtle slowdown. And let's go ahead and watch that. All right, excellent. Well, that's it for this week's podcast. If you have any questions about how to create a certain look or any kind of techniques in Premiere Pro CS3, feel free to send me an email, and in next week's podcast, I'll show you how to do it. Have a good week.